Well, hello, and welcome to Gallifrey's Most Wanted presents Comic Shop 3. I'm here again with Mark McManus from Trap One, and we're going to talk more Doctor Who comics. Say hi, Mark. Say hi, Mark.
Hello, pleasure to be back, and especially to be discussing the story that we're looking at today. It's one of my favorites.
Yes, we've been talking about the different ones we've enjoyed from the Titans, and we discussed seventh. Is this the only? This is the only Seventh Doctor one they've done for Titan. I wish they would do more. I don't think they may have the rights.
Mm-hmm.
I think Titan's rights might have changed, or they're just cautious.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because to be honest, I don't think these comics sell as well as other comics do. Licensed comics do not sell as well as other comics. A rare licensed comic is a huge hit. Star Trek in the 60s, the Canadian Gold Key ones, which are atrociously bad because they get none of it right for the first 2 years. I used to have collections of them. But Conan is one that does very well. Titan just took the Robert Howard estate, moves Conan around. When licenses come up, they will just move it to a new company. And Marvel had it. Marvel had it when I was a kid. And they had just had it for the last 10 years, and that allowed them to reprint their back catalog of it because they had it for 20 years. So they have a gigantic back catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And they also got the rights. Dark Horse, which does Hellboy and stuff, had it for a long time. But Titan did that. And so we're discussing the Seventh Doctor Operation Volcano, which is one of those when Titan was doing these mini-series, like a Third Doctor, an Eighth Doctor. And when those are coming out, those are the ones I like the best. Except other than I liked Al Ewing's Matt Smith, when Al Ewing was writing Matt Smith. That is still my, of their ongoing. But I think Titan is kind of pulled back. I don't think I don't think the Jodie, I think they sold less and less as they got to Capaldi. Even with Capaldi, They were still doing the annual event, but I think it was after Capaldi they shrunk everything down and did a couple of these. And now they just do 4 and 5 issue miniseries. They don't have an ongoing, and I like it. Right now, it's a Fugitive Doctor.
Yes.
And it's pretty damn good.
I'm not up to date with those ones, but
just wait. All the free comic day one and the 4 issues will be the trade.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's basically, and it's Jody Houser who's been writing all the 13th Doctor. I like the writing a great deal, and I've liked it, and I like all the art. I think Titan gets good, solid artists, and we'll talk about that. But we're doing Operation Volcano. It was a 3-parter. I was digging for my copies, and I swore it was a 4-parter, and then I remembered, issue 1 is double-sized.
Yes,
because it's a hefty tome. And it is, hold on a second, from Titan, as I said, but I'm going to give you some dates, but it is a 7th Doctor and 8th story, and they are teamed back up with Countermeasures. They have Rachel Jensen, good God,
Allison,
Dr. Allison, and I'm not going to remember the character's last name.
Yeah, I can't remember his surname at the moment either.
And Group Captain Gilmore, which I do love him. Have you listened to the Countermeasures?
I've listened
Big
to the
Finish?
the first 2 series. And,
I think that's what I've listened to. I haven't caught up.
Yeah, and then the 7th Doctor main range story, Assassination Games.
Oh, yeah, I like that one.
That came out for the 50th. And actually shares some DNA, I think, with Operation Volcano. I think probably because of the 60s setting, you've got the sort of the nuclear, sort of threat of nuclear war stuff. And you've also got aliens that look like humans. So it's that sort of Cold War body snatchers sort of infiltration idea, isn't it? So,
which is a very 1960s Quatermass, John Wyndham kind of idea. Yeah, and that's what I kind of liked about this. It was while I was sick with COVID, I watched the 70s Bond, but all Bond is a little bit 60s.
Yeah.
So, but this is really good, and it's by Andrew Cartmel, Ben Aronovich, and he is credited as executive producer. I don't know what that's about. The artist is Christopher Jones, who I really loved. Let's see if I have this. Wait, looking at these.
Yeah,
I don't know if he has an inker, because I don't know how much you know about comics, but in the old days you had a penciler and you had an inker. One man penciled it and the other inked it and finished it. And depending on the style of art, Marco Lesko is the colorist, and has some of the best. It's lettering by a company called Comic Craft, and Richard Starkings is the main one, and Jimmy Betancourt. They letter a bunch of stuff I really like. A comic book called Astro City, which is kind of like a famous superhero comic book writer and artists created their own universe and are using all these tropes to build a universe and been doing it for about 20 years. It's great. But Comic Craft has the lettering is, this isn't as flashy as some of it, but they are really good. They're a company that do it, and they do it quite well. And when they're asked to be very inventive, they are. But this is pretty standard.
It's an incredible pedigree of Andrew Cartmel and Ben Aronovich.
Oh, gotcha. It would slip right in to one of those seasons, but just on a giant budget.
Yes.
Because this is a blockbuster kind of movie version of it in a lot of ways. I feel it's written very in a film script manner.
Yeah.
And I think that's an intent. There are a lot of wide panels randomly set to set setting, especially in the outback. I like that it's set in Australia.
Yeah, there's not many Doctor Who stories set in Australia, are there?
Enemy of the World. That's the only one I can think of.
Yeah.
Enemy of the World. So.
No, absolutely. There's a brief sojourn in the pilot, isn't there, to Sydney Harbour, but apparently it's not really set there. So yeah, it's not a place that the Doctor visits very often.
No.
Yeah, fantastic. Because obviously these are two people that worked on the Seventh Doctor era, so it makes it incredibly authentic in terms of the characters. And Ben Aronovich has created the countermeasures team for Remembrance of the Daleks. So I wonder if that is why he got the executive producer credit as well, if he owns those. Yeah.
Yeah, because all the way through, that copyright thing is, if you create a character in a Doctor Who story, the character is yours. Yeah. And all the BBC owns is Gallifrey, stuff's directly attached to the Doctor. It's like why the Hazeman family, whenever the Brigadier, and why they were kind of reluctant to allow, why you didn't have someone new playing the Brigadier. I think when John Coleshaw came on, I think they had to clear, the BBC had to, not BBC, Big Finish had to clear that with them.
Right. And it's worth mentioning as well, there is a prequel to this story in the free comic book from 2018.
That is right, I forgot about that.
Yeah, this is the Armageddon Gambit by John Freeman, who used to be the editor of the Doctor Who magazine. And it's sort of the tail end of an adventure for the Seventh Doctor and Ace, where they defeat a big space army through the Doctor basically tricking them, which is very, very Seventh Doctor. And then it doesn't quite marry up with Operation Volcano, because in this they get a message through the time-space telegraph, that Group Captain Gilmore has a link to, like the Brigadier did.
Yeah.
And is able to message the Doctor. So it doesn't quite marry up with that story in terms of how they summon the Doctor for help. But what I really like about the Armageddon Gambit is you get a little bit more of the new TARDIS interior.
Oh, God, I love that interior. It is so sweet.
Beautiful. In the actual, in the three-part story, I think you only get one panel of it at the very end of the story.
Yeah.
But you get about 3 in this one, and you can see how it is gradually morphing from what you had in the McCoy era to what you have in the TV movie. So you've got those metal struts around the console. You see, I think in one of them you can see the armchair. You can see
you can see the seal of Rassilon over the doors, and the doors are actually police box doors like they are in the Capaldi era.
Yeah. And also the record player. I can't remember what the name is for an old-fashioned record
Victrola.
player.
It's called a Victrola.
Patroller, right? So you can see that, which is which is what starts skipping at the start of the TV movie, isn't it? When the Master Snake form escapes. So it's a nice way of doing it because it's sort of halfway between the gleaming white
and the
20th
Victoriana steampunk. I absolutely will always say this: the Eighth Doctor's TARDIS console room is my absolute favorite.
Mm-hmm.
That is, if I was set designing, it would be like that. It should look like a Victorian gentleman's library with a bunch of crap built in it. And I really love that set. And they, the set designer did a really good job on that. And I like how they kind of do meet that happy way point between them. It's kind of like they did with the War Doctor's TARDIS, was a halfway between the original series and the Coral. The coral had started to grow, so I kind of like that. But all the design in this, because Christopher Jones is a very precise artist. I'm surprised he's not doing more. He's done some Marvel. He may not have the level of flash they want for American superhero comics, but I'd buy any superhero comic because I think he would adapt. Because I think he's going for a cinematic layout because it's based on a TV show. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I wish I had some of his Star Trek stuff to kind of compare it, because I have a feeling that that's going to look a little more pop culture six. He's going to have a different take because Star Trek looks different. You know what I mean? The two, or he just does what he does here is like, I'm going to do season 26 Doctor Who on, a small budget movie kind of thing, because this, it's so good. I forgot how good it was. And how tight it was. What did you think of the plot? Did you, overall?
Yeah, like you say, it is very tight. You have to pay attention, and there's a lot of characters introduced quite early on, and you kind of have to keep track of those and maybe look back a little bit to see who they are and what part they played. Mm-hmm. But I think that also is in keeping with season 26, though, isn't it? You have to follow Ghostlight and the Curse of Fenric and things, and sort of keep thinking about what the characters' motivations are and who they are. It's continues that sophisticated storytelling, I think, from the Cartmel era.
Yeah. Because folks, we haven't get the synopsis is basically the Doctor's called by countermeasures to help because they found an alien ship in and I didn't know this bit. I knew the English had detonated hydrogen bombs, but I'd forgotten that they had done it in Australia. I understand why. It's why we did ours in a desert,
Yeah, because there's so much just.
The middle of Australia is hard. People live in it, but it's kind of like northern Canada. People just think Canadians only live on their southern border pretty much. Mm-hmm. Once you move, Calgary, which is like halfway between Montana and Alaska. That's a big city, but that's just that's where it's an agricultural center, where cattle and stuff go through. But but Australia, from what it's densely populated on the coast, and then not so much in the middle, and especially in some places very little because it is rough terrain. Yeah. It's like my dad lived in Arizona, and Arizona you'd go from desert, which is where all the rich folk live, and then you go north to go to Grand Canyon, and you're in it's way different. But Americans, we have that place, New Mexico, Arizona, where we dropped our bombs. Mm-hmm. But that was a neat little history thing. I like that. I love Doctor Who in the past when it's not it's a quasi historical. There's some historical event, and then there's action happening around it.
Yeah, it's good. It takes advantage of, because I think I'm right in saying that some parts of Australia are still technically uncharted because nobody's ever actually been there.
Except the Aboriginal people. Yeah.
And parts of it are just so huge, and there's you couldn't really sustain, I suppose, if there's no water around and things like that. But yeah, it takes advantage of how remote it is in the story as well. And what's nice is you have these little flashes of Gilmore waking up in 2039 when he's on a rescued aboard a spacecraft and taken back to Earth, and so all the time you're guessing about how he's got there, whether he's been taken over by the aliens or it's really clever storytelling. It's really good.
Yeah, I love it at the top when he leaves and says I'm going, and then it's a moment later when he comes back and the guy's like his aide is like what?
Yeah.
And I giggled when I read it.
The Doctor. Yeah, the way they summon the Doctor, they put that day's newspaper in a particular book in a library. In
a dead drop. Behind this book, there's a little a hidden panel.
Yeah.
And they stick the newspaper in, and then Ace and the Doctor walk with the paper, and it's so old it disintegrates when they open it. and the guy ends up being one of the baddies who's with Group Captain Gilmore. Is just like what is confusing. Gilmore what I love is Group Captain Gilmore and Rachel and Allison are kind of like, I don't know why they created a new thing. They could have used Unit, but except they wanted to do something before it. And I like that. I like that this is a very 60s, because remember, Unit's supposed to be 10 years, blah, 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 that Unit dating problem, where you can say that, they are set in the 60s. This is a very, Quatermass kind of, but they just take the Doctor in stride after one adventure. So I think, do you get I got kind of an inference that they have met again and again.
Yeah, I take it because this is, I think, 1967. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that puts it sort of 4 years after Remembrance of the Daleks. So I take it maybe like the Assassination Games Big Finish story, although not referenced here, is potentially taking place between those two, because that's in 1963 as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably happened in the meantime.
Yeah. What did you? They introduced some really good secondary characters. Some are which I think are more important than others. I like the two spies.
Mm-hmm.
The Aboriginal spy who is keeps going. They joke. Do you have to mention you went to Cambridge?
Yeah. And then the other, because they've been given the same mission by their Soviet handlers, and so they keep meeting, trying to do the same sneaky things. And the other guy says to him, "Oh, at least your Cambridge, you put your Cambridge education to good use," which gives a reference to the Cambridge spy ring, which was uncovered in the 50s or the 60s when there was
Kim Philby.
The sort of 4 or 5 high-ranking MI5 agents who turned out all to be
double agents,
to be double agents. Yeah.
Did you catch that I don't know if you know this is because it's an American pop culture reference, that this not the Aboriginal spy, but the other one is drawn to look like Kolchak. You know who Kolchak is?
No, I didn't get that. No.
It was a horror show. Have you ever seen the movie The Christmas Story?
No.
Okay. Then the actor plays the dad in The Christmas Story, but it's basically he's drawn to look like. Hold on a second, I'll pull it up. But Kolchak was a tabloid reporter who chased down supernatural mysteries.
Right.
There it is. Okay, the show was called Kolchak the Night Stalker. And it starred Darren. What is your last name? Darren McGavin, who is mostly known as the father, the profane father in A Christmas Story and other things. He did a lot, but Kolchak, and it's not. I'll share a picture, show you. But there's I'm talking about. He looks. It's intentional. It's
right.
He looks just like him, and I loved it. So I see that Christopher Jones is an American comic artist, but it's the hat. The tie, the rumpled tie, you know. Kolchak's suit was always unwrinkled. It was always a mess, you know. But it was one of those shows like, kind of like on the vein of, good God, not blanking on the set. There's at 90s, the X-Files.
Oh yeah,
Kind of like
yeah.
that. You're never really sure, you know, like, was this a vampire I met and I fought and stuff like that. And Darren McGavin's a really good actor. I mean, an incredibly good actor because he plays this character. You're endeared to him, and I just like that I'm assuming Chris Jones has watched it. He's, you know, it was on in the 70s. Probably Chris Jones was not alive when the show was on, but it is a popular for American nerds of horror. It's a kind of a touchstone show, and I liked it. I thought it was a very nice touch. I liked all the character designs. I have a problem with some comic artists that you can't tell people apart because some faces are hard. So there's some comic artists that every man has the same basic face. Women are really bad. Women are weird. There's a comic artist, John Byrne, is famous. It took him a while to learn how to differentiate women's faces.
Right.
They just, you know, because, you know.
Yeah.
But I just like that. I like the plot too. I like that there's this alien spaceship. All these different people are coming together trying to figure it out, and the Doctor and Ace are just kind of like, whatever, we've got this. You know.
And everyone's got their own agenda. So you've got the two Soviet spies. You've got people who are working for the aliens who are good, but who are monstrous looking. So it's a bit Galaxy 4 in that sense, isn't it? Because you've got they call themselves the Feds, don't they, to Ace, so that they use that sort of cultural reference so that she understands. So they're the police, whereas the aliens who are the baddies who they've chased to Earth are these incredibly beautiful people. Because the character, the Australian, she's an ecologist or something, isn't she?
Eco-journalist or something like that.
Yeah, she's drawn as like a comic book female, isn't she? Very sort of shapely and attractive. But there's actually a reason for it here as well, that you realise that all these people are sort of perfect physical specimens as well.
Oh yeah, I always like that thing. They do it in the Twilight Zone where the woman. You've seen the one where the woman's had her face disfigured and you can't see the faces of any of the people, and they take off the bandages and she's beautiful, and the camera finally pans up and all the doctors and nurses they have like one swollen eye and a pig snout and pointy ears.
No, I don't.
It's considered one of the great because the whole thing is she's like, I've been burned, I'm going to be so damaged, and they take off the mask and she's stunning, and everybody else in the room is a monster.
Right.
So yeah, I do like this. That's one thing with Galaxy. We're watching it with the animation. It never clicked with me as an audio or one of the recons because it's just kind of silly. But I do think the animation helped a bit. But I like that idea of, beauty is, it's in the eye of the beholder. I kind of like that little take on it. And I like the snake creatures. I like when they go to the Aboriginal, or the stones in Australia, and they bury the one that got killed by you think he's killed him for like a page or two, like, he killed the alien. Oh, wait a minute. No, he's the bad. Then you realize that he's the baddie.
Yeah, and it's a sacred burial ground, isn't it? So that to gain the trust of these aliens, so that the Doctor can then communicate with them.
Yeah, and Ace volunteering to do it. I think I think Andrew Cartmel really captures in this script, and I think he leaves a lot to Christopher Jones, because I think a lot of it is. It's hard to portray a connection in a comic book, but some people can do it. I think, I see the personalities of the actors people that were played by actors we've seen. You know what I mean? I think he's got McCoy's posture down. The facial expressions are spot on.
Yes.
It really rings true.
Yeah, there's one particular part where they found the snake and they shoot him from below, looking down at it. And he says something like, "It's not of this earth," and you can hear McCoy delivering that line in the same way that he does in Remembrance of the Daleks, when he says things like, "It's not even remotely human," and all that kind of thing. It's he captures it very well.
Yeah. and it's more that cinematic, their wide shots, and there's some. I'm looking in the big one. It's when the white Soviet spy attacks Ace, and there's a page where it goes panel by panel as she punches him, and then he pins, and then Cookie, who's like the Benton of the Australian military unit, kills the guy, and Ace doesn't really complain about it. That was a little striking to me. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. There's no mention of someone getting killed.
I suppose he was trying to stab her, so it was quite sort of in extremis, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's about the only thing that takes it out of the 1980s TV production, because they would comment on that, or he would have just been hit in the head with the butt of the gun, which is But this story conveys action very well visually. I mean, I think he doesn't waste time doing it, but he'll take a page or two to do it.
Yeah, and there's the other really good action bit is when the dust storm is blowing in, and the Doctor's provided these radiation-proof tents from the TARDIS, and they're cut off and they've been betrayed, and then you realise that these tents can be adapted into sort of windsurfing.
Catamaran, well. Yeah, I like that.
So it's a terrific one-page thing of them flying along with the storm behind them as well. I love that.
Oh, I did too. I like that the spies are trying to steal these plastic, and it looks like it would have been designed by the BBC, just a clear plastic spacesuit with a little piece of metal on the front to be whatever the operating thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like that because it reminded me of like Moonbase or stuff like that. When they would create a future spacesuit.
And it's a good design as well because all it just appears is an outline, isn't it, around the characters? So you've still got the faces and the facial expression and the body language in there. But yeah, it would have been very cheap for them to make with some cellophane or some clear plastic in the special effects department. Yeah,
melted together.
Imagine it'd be very noisy on the set.
Oh my God, and incredibly hot.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I liked it a lot. I'm really Titan always puts out multiple covers, and I got certain covers, and I like these. What did you think of? Did any of this confuse you? Because I want to ask, as I read back, is why Gilmore has to go to the ship? That I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, he gets cut off, doesn't he? The doors close because the bad guys are about to launch the alien ship, and he sort of ends up inside there, takes him up into orbit, but because he's got one of the snake aliens, they're able to put him in some kind of suspended animation or so he survives up there for I guess like 70 years or something. It takes him up to 2039 when there's another ship. And that was a nice idea as well, that there's a ship in 2039 that's clearing all the junk and the debris that's in orbit. Because that is something I've read about as being a problem.
It's terrible.
In space.
It's terrible. It's terrible. That you'll hear about every once in a while. The astronauts have to, on the ISS, have to get into their most inner section and ride out a storm because pieces of crap could hit it, and they're never if a small piece is hard enough and moving at the right speed, it could go into something.
Yeah.
So it's like, we put up the Webb Space Telescope and we put it way out there, and one mirror's already been hit by a micrometeor.
Right.
And that's why, and they're going, well, is it damaged? It's like, no, that's why there's so many mirrors on this damn thing. Because if we lose one,
you've got some redundancy.
Yeah, you've got thousands of little mirrors on it. But yeah, I like that. I like it was kind of like a more updated space shuttle, which is no one's going toward now. We've all gone back to, we shoot capsules.
Yeah.
And it's more like if we go to Mars, we're going to just build it modularly like we do space stations, send up pieces and build it in space and stuff like that. But I liked it. And it's, because of the art being so crisp and clean, I mean, I can't gush about it enough. I like a good comic that takes chances. But I love a comic artist who just is, I've just got to tell the story. And I'll get my flourishes in how consistent the characters are, how good the panel layout is, you know. And I think Titan that's their, because I can't, most of the comics are like that since Capaldi. Simon Fraser, who did the 11th stuff I like, he had a little more cartoony, but I think he did it because he's trying to capture Matt Smith's body language. So it couldn't be hyper realistic because you need to show that he is all, you know, he's like a marionette when he's running and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So overall, it's the size of a 4-issue miniseries because the first issue is huge. You have it on trade though, right?
No, I don't have this one. I've got the 3 issues.
Let's see the covers. No, I don't think we have any covers the same.
So yeah, for issue 1, I've got what looks like a season 25 sort of shot because
that's a nice painting cover.
It's lovely. Got McCoy in the paler jacket.
I think I've got a Sophie Caldry cover.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and then 2 is the Doctor hanging out of the TARDIS. And that's by Chris Jones. Is that your 2?
No, I've got this one. Folks,
you're not missing it, but we're showing up.
These are Will Brooks ones that I've got. So
okay, Will Brooks. Okay.
They're really nice. Although I say it's the wrong jacket for the story. They're nice sort of portraits. And then for issue 3, I've got Christopher Jones, who is the.
That's the one we have the same. Okay.
Yeah, and that's the Doctor and Ace. And then in the background, you've got lots of the villains that they faced together over their 2 seasons. So you've got a cheetah person, you've got the Destroyer, the Dragon, one of the gods of Ragnarok, the Chief Clown, a Cyberman, Hemivores. So yeah, it's a really, really cool cover, that one.
Yeah. Okay, so my number 2 is a Chris Jones cover. My number 1 is an Alice K. Zhang.
Right. Oh, she does the lovely steelbook. Some of the steelbook art, doesn't she?
Yeah, I thought for a second it reminded me of Sophie Caldry, who I have one of her prints right after Jodie came in and she did a print with all the faces of all the Doctors.
Right.
Yeah, and it looks like that. And Sophie Caldry's done some of the steelbook. I only have one steelbook that is an animation, and that's Day of the Doctor.
Right.
I wish I had been getting them because I do. Nice.
They're very pretty, aren't they?
Yeah. It's what because I do hardback comics now to save space, and I did an interview with a person who's cleaning up some trying to make new cleaned up digital copies of Marvel's run of Micronauts, which was a licensed toy. It was a great comic, but Hasbro's never let anybody else use it again. So it's out of print. But he's just doing that as his own. He's going to give, when he's finished doing all the cleanup of the art, he's going to give it to Marvel and say, if you can ever get permission to reprint this one time, here's new copies. Because, it's old. It's a 40-year-old comic. But he calls it shelf porn when you get the nice hardbacks and stuff. And
yeah.
The comic companies are putting out omnibuses, which are about 1,000 pages hardcover. And they just did 2 Legion of Superhero ones in the last year that, I pinch pennies to get because they're just gorgeous. I can read most Marvel and most DC on my phone now because I do the apps. I don't know if Titan. I didn't realize Titan has an app.
No, I don't know.
Does it, or is it all through Comixology? Is a car wreck because Amazon bought it, and I have not heard anything but pure visceral hatred to what they did. Like they treat the layout and look, so when they want to look for stuff, it's almost impossible. Because they did it like it was you were buying a regular comic. You have to go into like the regular Amazon and then click the Comixology, and the comic app, the DC and Marvel one, are really easy to use. You know what I mean? But you can also, I have an app on my phone that I have some digital files of older comics that someone's given me, and it'll take those PDFs and whatever and turn them into the program for comic reading, so you can do panel by panel. And I have some old I found an old file. Someone gave me an old file of a bunch of old Doctor Who comics, like all the all the Panini trades.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot I had it on. I have a very old hard drive with all my Doctor Who I downloaded it when I got videotapes converted to digital. So, but that's a digress. Overall, do you like this? I mean, because this would have just been a 4-issue mini, 5 counting the free comic day. Now I'm gonna have to go dig for that free comic day.
Yeah.
It's raining here. I may sort some comics and because I need to put I got to put my Doctor Who issues in order. There, it's a mess. I went in there. I'm just wedging this crap in here. But I mean, I think it works really well, and I read it in 2 straight sittings, one last night and one this morning, and it reads really well. And it reads about the length of a 90-minute movie. It really, the flow is. Some comics nowadays take 10 minutes to read, which bothers me. When I read a Silver Age comic, which is a comic from the 50s to the mid-70s, it takes me about 35, 40 minutes. Mm-hmm. I mean, and still only 13 or 14 pages because there's action, there's exposition, a lot of modern superhero comics, depending on the writer, they don't, it's all show, no tell. Mm. And sometimes it's just posing. And that's what I liked about this. And what I like about the Third Doctor one that Paul Cornell and Chris Jones do is it's a TV script. I think Paul Cornell's a better comic writer. He is a good comic writer. Mm-hmm. His run on Action Comics was great. And the main character is Luther. And he's going to be doing... J.R.R. Martin did a series of anthology books called the Wild Card series before he did Game of Thrones. And it's about an alien spaceship blows up over Manhattan, and what's called the wild card virus comes out, and you if you draw an ace, you get super powers. If you draw the Joker, you die. Right. And then some of you are immune. And basically, it was a series of about 20 books, and every chapter is written by a different author. And J.R. Martin was the editor, and Melinda Snodgrass eventually took over editing, and she wrote for Next Gen, and did some comics. But Paul Cornell is writing it for Marvel Comics. They're adapting the first novel. Right. And Cornell's coming back. And every time I buy a Paul Cornell comic, I am very happy. I bought one of his Where the Monsters Are. It was one of his indie comics, and it was wonderful. But I wish they could get Cartmel to do another one.
Yeah, if this was an annual event, if they did three issues or 4 issues of the Seventh Doctor, I'd love it. It's one of the era. It's the era that got me into the show. I absolutely love it, and for it to be in the hands of, its chief architect of Andrew Cartmel, and I think Ben Aronovich had a lot of input as well. If you read Andrew Cartmel's Script Doctor book about his time on the show, I think
I haven't read it yet. I really want to. Me and Vic, one of our highlights of that Baltimore Doctor Who con we used to go to is the time we went in on one of his panels, and it was me and Vic, and then about 6 women. Almost everybody except me and Vic was in an Ace costume, and he just said, "I don't want to sit behind the table," And he came out and sat in the front row, and we all kind of sat in a circle, and he asked us questions. It was absolutely wonderful, because especially when the women were talking about thank you for Ace, and he said, no, you guys made Ace. That's all you. And it was genuine. He wasn't full of shit. He understood his audience. He understood each person. He got what they were saying when they were telling, all these individuals were telling their stories, their Doctor Who stories. And those are stories I like. And I sit back and listen because I went, I like to know why someone's a fan. I think that's the best thing about fans. Not arguing whose taste is better. It's like, tell me why that excites you. I just recorded a 5 Doctors, and it went up today about the 11th Doctor with Cy Hart and Fraser Gregory. We all love Matt Smith. But we all like different aspects of Matt Smith. Some episodes that I love, Fraser didn't like, and such. But it's, you know what I mean? So I like that. And Cartmel, he could read a room, and he's just a very, very nice guy. Yeah. Have you ever gone to a con and seen him? I mean, your cons are different than ours. Do you have panels?
Yeah. Okay. I saw him. probably about 7 or 8 years ago now.
That's
But
about
yeah,
when I
so
saw it,
a convention called Dimensions, and he's very interesting. Yeah, I love to hear about that era.
He's not, and he has no ego. He could take
No.
he could take credit for a lot. We'd give him credit, and he deserves it. I think, me and Vic talk about it. What he did with the show is he was a perfect script editor for Turner at that time. And what saddens me is that the higher ups in grade don't see that there has been a quality correction.
Yeah.
And that grade wants bigger is better. And I watch him interviewed. I just watched a documentary about music hall. And since his uncle, Lou Grade, came out of Variety before he became a bigwig in TV, had a table dancing thing. And they show a clip of his uncle in his like an early part of the 20th century dancing on a table. It's really freaking weird. And I find him very engaging, and I find him kind of nice. But every time he's talked about Doctor Who, it's just like, dude, you're a dick.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand why you do it, and but man, but I also think the BBC really lost with licensing was happening well before Turner was trying to he was like, let's make toys, let's do this. This is part of being the producer of a show like this. And I think Russell Davies gets that in the modern era more than, say, Moffat and definitely Chibnall. Moffat and Chibnall are more focused on the show only, and I get that. But Davies is a showman. Davies knows I've got to go on every talk show and be jovial and be engaging, and I've got to go out on the street when we're filming in the public to distract the crowd.
Yeah.
And still promote the show, and but because we could get more stuff like this comic. That's why I'm kind of going on this, is that when you have good merchandising and good spin-off stuff, you get this. And so I would why not let Cartmel do a series every once in a while, or Aronovich. I think Titan may expand with Davies. I think with Davies, because it'll be promoted, because Bad Wolf is, for them to make their money, is they've got to create spin-offs, and they've got to get thank God that Davies is involved, because I don't see he stopped the BP from shutting down Big Finish when he first no we need this stuff. This stuff is good. We don't we have infrastructure for marketing, and we'll sell more, and you will get Big Finish will sell more, and you will get more money. Don't think that you only need the one.
Yes,
and I think that's what they mean by the Marvel. They want to do a Marvel or Disney version, because then we get more of this. You know what I mean? That means more of everything.
Yeah, the bigger the audience for the show, the more audience, like you say, is for the spin-off. You bring in new fans who are then curious about the previous 60 years worth of.
That's how I got hooked.
Stories, and absolutely.
I was like 13 years old, and I was a list maker, and my brother gave me the Pinnacle books, and he talked about it, and then I went away, and then I got more, and I remember when the weekly came out in this country, we got 4 on that same comic day, because we'd get them like 2 months after you, but we'd get all 4 weeks. And I have my number 1. It's framed now, and it's hanging up in my office.
Brilliant.
And that's so I knew who Dave Gibbons was before he was huge. Before he did a really good run of Green Lantern with John Stewart, the Black Green Lantern, when he was the first artist when John Stewart had been around for about 15 years, but he had never been the lead of the series. And a guy named Lynn Wein, who's a famous comic editor, and most comic writers from who work for DC, like Swamp Thing is big, and John Constantine. That's all because Lynn Wein, who created Swamp Thing, was editing those books at the time and going, "We're going to bring this." Great. He would make people. He would discover people. He was the one that said Dave Gibbons needs to come over here and draw Green Lantern with me. And it's beautiful. But that was it. Is because back then in the 80s, that was Turner, and you got the comics. And I think comics, to get back because we're talking comics, and I think most of the Doctor Who comics I've read, I don't know the early stuff as much. I have a handful I had a handful of the comic reprints of the Third Doctor and First and Second Doctors of TV action, which is okay, but it is very English. It is it's very well. It's Americans are always monthlies, 22 pages, but most countries are like those newsprint ones with 3 or 4 pages of 10 different things, like 2000 AD. And I think 2000 AD is the best example of that, because for a comic reader like me, I'm going to read all those stories, where like some of the TV action ones, I'm going to go, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
TV show. I unplugged my gesturing, Matt Smith gesturing, I unplugged my earphones. Yeah. But I think most of the comics really get it. I think the Panini, the Marvel Panini, whatever, Titan, over what it is in England now, I think consistently they've had very good comic strips. Some stories are better than others, but I thought the Wagner, Gibbons, Parkhouse stuff at the beginning, the Grant Morrison, Andrew Ridgway stuff for the 6th and 7th is so. I've not gotten the Soul Catcher trade. I think I'm going to go tell my wife I want all the Colin Baker Paninis for Christmas next year, because those are ones I'd want. I've got some of them when IDW is reprinting, and the Paul McGann stuff in the monthly was in the magazine. I like that a lot. I like that a whole lot, and I really liked what they were doing with Matt Smith, where they had Ian and Barbara come back, the cave one. I'd love that. And Titan, I think for the most part is good. IDW, some stuff I like better than others. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it was bad, and there was too many. And I think Titan did it for a while. There were too many team-ups of Doctors. I think Titan still does it too often. It should be a rarity, not every other year. But I did like the Matt Smith 8th Doctor team-up. Just take Rose out of it. Rose is in a lot of stuff too. They insert on some of them. I think they've been. This was simplistic, but not daring, But I think this, just doing a 7th Doctor story by the people who wrote him, you're going to have a better success. I think this is successful with that. I think the 3rd Doctor one's successful. I think the first 8th Doctor one is good. I think the 9th Doctor, one of the few he did, that one mini he did, when you just tell those stories, you're doing good. I don't think they gave Jodie's Doctor a chance, because you're always got another Doctor in it. And I think that if you adjust, maybe down the road they'll do another one, because I think Jodie Hauser and Nicholas Scott, who's drawing at the top at the beginning, God, I love her. She's drawing the Fantastic Four now.
Right. Cool.
She left Doctor Who to draw Fantastic Four with a guy named Dan Slott, who had an amazing run on Spidey, and I think he's wrapping up his FF, but he's going on to something. I think he's going back to Spidey, and another big Spidey artist who used to work with someone else. They're going to team up from like 2 different eras and do some stuff. But I mean, I like the 13th Doctor stuff. But I think it was too much relying on mixing characters to try to build an audience. Just Doctor Who fans are going to buy it. Really the only people who are buying your comic book are hardcore Doctor Who fans. There's not someone who is only reading Doctor Who comics and not watching the show.
Yeah, and like you say there, what I'm looking for is something that's kind of in keeping with the era that feels, especially for the 7th Doctor, where we didn't get like a proper ending for his era. I want things that feel like a continuation. I want things that feel like season 27, and definitely Operation Volcano feels like that. It feels like the sort of things they would have wanted to do with the season 27 by the people that would have been doing it. Yeah,
but it's a bit more. I mean, you think this is they're allowed to do more, and they're allowed to have we can have more than 8 characters. We can have 10. You can have as many characters as you want. I think Chris Jones is a good thing, and you have the right artists. I mean, he's just perfect for this. He also does the comic adaptations of the Rivers of London, the Ben Ivanovich novels. There's a comic book version of it. I've never seen it.
No,
but I just looked at the thing, and Chris Jones was the artist on that too. So
right.
So
that makes sense.
I haven't read those. Vic says they got a good rap. They got a really good reputation.
I've read the first 2 or 3 books, and
Are they
yeah,
good?
they are great. And it's just been announced, I think, in the last week, there's going to be a TV adaptation. So that's something to look out for.
I hope it's someone good's doing it. Maybe Bad Wolf
Mhm.
Production. They do a lot of stuff for HBO Max.
That would be great.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see what Davies does. I mean, I'm gonna miss Jodie. I do. I've really loved
Mhm.
Jodie, and I'm looking forward to the centenary. I want to see what they do.
Yeah,
Hell, we get Ace back, man.
yeah, that's what I'm so excited for that. I was so excited to see her in the trailer. As I say, this is the era when I was 8, which is the sort of prime age, isn't it? Or
I
one of
think
the
it's
prime
what the
ages for
writers
free
and
comic.
creators are. You're about your age. The people working on the show are more probably your age than my age. You know, because if I was in England at my age, I would have be. Oh no, I'd be a Pertwee dude, because I'd have been
Mhm.
like 6 or 7 when he was on. So I would have probably
Yeah.
been a Pertwee kid. Because I'm an original. I mean, I'm old enough to probably have seen original Star Trek on when it aired the first time. I wouldn't. I would have been 4 or 5. I was
Mhm.
2 when it aired, and I was 5 when it went off.
Right.
5 or 6. So I'm 1 year younger than Doctor Who by
Right.
about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Vic pointed out that we didn't. I was born 1 week before Planet of Giants episode 1 aired.
Right.
So I only missed. I'm almost as old as the show.
Yeah.
So would you? I mean, I would recommend this. Get Titan. And you said this. Titan does trades.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, you can get them through Forbidden Planet mainly, I think, in the UK.
yeah.
It's best because they're American. I don't think they're that widely available, and they often do really good sales. I think I said this last time. They do really good sales every now and again where you can pick up hardbacks for $3.99 or $4.99, and that's where I've got most of my collection of trades and hardbacks from is whenever Forbidden Planet
Yeah, I like that
have a
British.
sale, and I'll splash out and buy a few.
Yeah, I like that. I call it the British version of a hardcover. Our hardcovers have dust jacks. They look more like a regular book, but you've got that crimped hard spine, which I like. Image
Mhm.
Comics over here does that for theirs now. They do it in that hardcover. And it's a really hardcover. I just got a comic called Aerosmith by Kurt Busiek and Carlos Pacheco, which is a great. It's what if magic was still around in World War II. World War One,
Right.
that Charlemagne had made a deal with all the magical creatures of the world, and there had been a peace. And there's in the United States, but it's the United States of Colombia.
Right.
Yeah, but it's about an American flyer, but instead of airplanes, they use miniature dragons and a spell, and they fly, and it's very cool, and it's really deep. And the art's, if Google Carlos Pacheco, he did some X-Men, he did some Avengers stuff, and he is like my favorite comic artist of like the 90s. I'd love to see him do a Doctor Who. Give him Tom Baker in a big space opera, and just because he did a book called Avengers Forever, where it was every Avenger, including Avengers from like alternate realities that in like what if stories over the first 50 years, and there's a fight scene where it's all of them and all their villains fighting for like 5 pages. And it's quite good.
Amazing.
But I think I would like to see them do more of these. Right now the only thing Titan's just doing these little minis. They do a mini, do another mini, and they're doing Fugitive Doctor. It is worth buying, folks, if you can get it. The Free Comic Day one was like all Free Comic Day is a very light story, but it was very simple, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. She's come to the Earth for the first time in the 60s and meets these 4 kids, and the 4 kids kind of help her figure out the mystery, and then she leaves and she goes, oh, they're pretty nice. And so it's kind of a cute little story, and it's nice. And I don't think I don't know what they've solicited. They tend to wait until near the end of whatever they're doing. I don't think their license is in any jeopardy or change. I think they got a good solid. It's the backbone of their license. I don't read anything else they do, but they do mostly licensed stuff.
These are Transformers and things, don't they?
Do they do Transformers now? Because Transformers has been
so.
IDW, it's been Marvel, it's been every bit. The license, certain licenses jump. The profitable licenses move around because you get outbid. Conan just moved to Titan, as I was saying earlier, and it had been at Marvel, it had been at Dark Horse. I mean, the first Conan comic came out in say 70, 1968 or 70. It was gorgeous. I mean, my brother's a huge Robert Howard, so we had them all. And one of my favorite comic writer wrote it for like 20 years. So, but I mean, I think they do better. During the pandemic, I sold all my IDWs because I got these 6 IDW cut down omnibuses, and it's all their stuff in like it's 3 Tennant volumes and 3 Matt Smith ones, and I got those, and they were cheap. I got all 6 of them for like $25.
That's good. I think I paid about £10 each for them. Again, I think it was a Forbidden Planet
It's got
sale,
the white, the blue and green piping.
Yeah,
and the white
but they're really thick volumes. There's a lot of content in them.
It takes up way less. Looks nice on the shelf and takes up way less space in because I had an entire comic box which holds about 500 comics with all their stuff in it. Mm-hmm. And I sold I had about 6 different versions of the Dave Gibbons, Tom Baker stuff because it had been reprinted ad nauseum. I had the issues. I had a Gold. You've never heard of it. Gold Key did movie adaptations in the 60s, and I had an adaptation of the first feature, but I sold that because I had bought it and I read it once because it's not very good, and sold it for about $200 when I was tight. But I want to kind of go. That's why I want to kind of. Pulling these out made me want to go through my comic box that has all my floppies and put them in order and see what I've not read. Because I get them, and there was so much coming out at one point I got behind. You had a 10th, 11th, and 12th series running monthly.
Yeah, and then they were throwing out these specials at the same time, like you say, like the 3rd Doctor, 7th Doctor, the 9th Doctor, and the 8th Doctors. There was too much to keep up with, kind of at one point.
Yeah,
and now it's the other extreme now.
Yeah, there's got to be a happy medium, but they're putting out a comic a month. They have 8 Doctor series, and so that's probably they're going. And if the new series, the Davies series, is a huge, it increases viewership and footprint. They'll probably do more. And Davies will go, Davies, he allowed them to do his Big Finish script. He's a nerd. He's a fanboy. That's what I like about him because he is, and Moffat was too, but I think Davies, he understands how to use these subsidiary things to his advantage.
Yeah.
But I'd like it. What other ones? I mean, I'm gonna have you back because we both want to talk about the 3rd Doctor one by Paul Cornell and Chris Jones, which is called, what is it?
The Heralds of Destruction.
The Heralds of Destruction, which is, all I will say is it is a multi-Doctor story, and that kinda. It is worth. If you have not read it, really, really read it. It's by Paul Cornell. It is spot on, perfect. It's got beautiful Chris Jones art, and it's a unit story, and they really do capture. I mean, I'm going to go back and look at the 8th Doctor and stuff like that because I found that these minis have been some of the ones I liked the best. So I'd like to have you come back on and we talk that.
Absolutely, anytime. Yeah, it's a pleasure.
All right. Well, what's on your plate coming up that you need to promote other than the Wonderful Trap 1? Or go ahead and pimp the Wonderful Trap 1.
Yeah, so Trap 1, we talk about anything and everything from Doctor Who, whether it be TV stories, Big Finish. We'll be doing the new Target novelizations that are coming out soon.
I am.
You can hear me on the Maximum Power Blake 7 podcast, the 2nd series of which will be starting soon, I think.
Oh, yes, I said that.
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch. I have not listened to it because I've only watched Blake 7 all the way through once, and that was in the beginning pandemic. I had a nice bootleg copy I got like 20-some years ago on DVD, and I was like, I'll just watch it. And then I went down a rabbit hole of other British science fiction from the 70s, like Time Slip and Sapphire and Steel, which I'd never watched. So, but I want to listen to Maxim, but I kind of want to watch an episode, then listen to an episode. Watch it because I don't have that stuff in my head.
Yeah, well, this is me watching Blake 7 for the first time.
Oh.
So the perspective that I bring to them is not knowing anything that's going to happen, not having any future knowledge. So I still only watched the first 2 series because I'm not going to watch the 3rd series until we record the podcast for the 3rd series. So yeah, that's been very interesting.
Well, that's cool. I'm definitely gonna have to do that because it opened my eyes. I'd started to watch it a couple times and never kind of got past the 2nd or 3rd episode. But this time I just did it and I went, well, you're an idiot. This is really good.
Yeah,
it's because it's Chris Boucher's running it. That's why it's so good.
Yeah, the first 3 episodes I think are really, really strong. It's sort of a one continuous story over those 3 episodes, but each one's got quite a different tone and a different style, and I was quite hooked early on.
It's a little bit more adult and dark, and the cast is amazing.
Yeah,
the cast is amazing. So anything else other than that coming up?
You can hear me on a couple of episodes of the Doctor Who Literature podcast as well, and with our mutual friend Jason. I'll be doing another episode of that in the next few weeks as well.
Yeah, I got 2 coming up. I think he's giving me 2 season 17 ones.
Yeah, so it's always a pleasure to join Jason on there.
Yeah.
And if anyone hasn't heard it, he's had some great names on there as well. He's had Philip Hinchcliffe recently.
It's Sadie Miller.
Yeah, John Peel.
I don't think I could ask John Peel on mine. I've seen some bad things about his writing. I like him.
Okay.
Man, I've met him, and I've got one of his Brigadier unit books signed, but I have been a little unkind when talking about some of his novels in the past. But I was unkind to some of the others, people too. I've never gotten through the New Adventures. I really need to do it because that's what me and Vic are covering. But I'm still reading his first one. I've been reading it for 30 years, and I'm still got like 5 chapters. That just made me. But I was I was an 8th Doctor novel guy. So. But thanks for coming on. I'm going to probably ask you back sooner than later to cover more comics and other things. And I'm coming up in next couple months. I'm doing a couple Doctor Who literatures. I'm looking forward to that. I do enjoy talking to Jason. I just had Jason on recently, and we discussed Tom Baker. I'm going to be doing more of those Doctor ones. I had Ian Martin from All of Time and Space do the 4th Doctor, and as I said earlier, Simon and Fraser came on and we talked 11th Doctor. So, but folks, you can find us on the interwebs at Gallifrey's MW Pod or at Runcible Report. You can also find my comic book podcast, Stop, Let's Team Up, on its Libsyn feed. Just type in Stop, Let's Team Up. It'll show up, as well as if you do in Gallifrey's Most Wanted, our Libsyn feed, but catch us on any other podcast service. We're on most of them, and if you want to contact, reach out. You can reach out through Twitter. Would love to hear your input. But until we're back again, we look forward to seeing you somewhere in time or space.